Welcome back to Max TV Original. First of all, thank you to all the new subscribers and welcome to my channel. I'm sure you have seen plenty of videos on YouTube on how to make a coil cable. And you tried them, that result is not what you were hoping for. Sure, a cable ends up looking like a loose coil, but there is no springiness to it, and on the first stretch it stays stretched out. Well, there are two things that are going wrong. First one is usually you're told to wind the cable onto the pencil and use a hot air gun. That's pretty much cable done. The problem with that is that hot air gun will hit on the surface of the wire, leaving middle and inside of the coil cold. And the second thing is that not a single video I have seen mentions a simple secret that makes a nice spring. In fact, the secret is still considered a secret in manufacturing of coiled cables. As you know, coiled cables are very expensive to buy, so I've been making my coiled cables for a few years now. Have a look at these examples. This is an Apple to HDMI converter cable from eBay. It has got a quite long cable. In my application I needed a short cable, so with this method I have transformed it into coiled cable, and this converter has now had its cables like this for 2 years. They'll spring back with no issues. Here is another power cable I made for my camera and it looks great. So let's get started. First, let's talk about the cables you can use. Not all the cables can be coiled. For example, a silicone type cables like this microphone cable can't be coiled because it's designed to be soft and won't hold its shape. Also, high current electrical cables with a solid core won't do either, as they're too hard and the copper core itself responsible for the shape memory. We're looking for a cable that is more or less hard and has a plasticky feel to it. You can try U-bending your cable like this, and if it springs out like a microphone cable, that's not good. If it's hold a U-shape perfectly, then it's not good either. Look for a cable that springs back, but not all the way. Chances are it's a good candidate. Now let's have a look at the mandatory tools you will need. A metal rod. I use a stainless steel rod from an old printer. There are a few different diameter sizes you can find inside the printer, and depending on the diameter of your cable, you can use a smaller diameter rod, so coil looks proportional when it's done. For example, I will wind this 3.5mm diameter cable onto 9mm rod. It's not crucial if you're using slightly larger or smaller rod. If you don't have a rod like this, you can use a copper pipe or any similar metal object. The reason I'm using stainless steel is because one of the steps will involve water, so you will also need a high temperature Kapton tape and your household oven. Of course, professionally coiled cables are made in an industrial high-precision ovens, but we're making it at home, right? Also, optionally, you can use an electric screwdriver to help you with winding the cable onto the rod. Once we make our first steps and make the coiled cable, we will get to do the simple secret making your cable springy. Alright, so I will be rolling 2 cables at once today. I have a pretty long rod, so it will fit the cables. Now what I usually do first is create a little loops on the end. If you're using a printer cable, you can create those little loops from simple copper wire, just so you can hang it later on the rack in the oven. So one side I usually just do permanently, second side I usually do removable, because once the cable is coiled, we will need to remove it. So make sure it's clean. First, what I will do, I will use this gray cable. Make sure the cable is straight. Straighten it out with your hand as much as you can. Now, make sure you don't coil it right straight away from the beginning of the cable. Leave a little bit. The little tail that you're leaving would be sufficient enough for you to add the plug or whatever you're adding it for. So start coiling the cable maybe around 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters away. So what we'll do, we'll take a little bit of Kapton tape and we'll wrap it around the cable, pressing it very firmly to the rod itself, and do 1 or 2 loops of that. Just to make sure, apply a little bit of pressure to make sure the cable stays firm in the position. And let's cut that. Now, I usually use an electric screwdriver to help me. wind the cable, it's a lot easier. So I just insert it into the screwdriver. I usually do the first loop. Let me get it in the frame so you can see. Once the first loop is there, all you have to do is make sure it's staying there, and at a slow speed slowly coil it up onto the rod. Again, leaving a little bit of a tail at the end. This cable is really strong, so leave a little bit of tail as well, and using more Kapton tape, attach it to the rod. That's a tricky part. There we go. Now also I'll be using a second winding a second cable onto that same rod, since I still have some space left, so make sure that's nice and compressed. Cool. I've got another cable here. Where is it? That's not it. That's the strong one. There, this is the 5-volt cable from a power adapter. So make sure it's straight. It has a plug on it, so we will have to put some afterwards. Make sure that you don't wet it. Once the cable goes in the water, you have to make sure that you don't wet the plug. With a normal cable like that, it's alright because you can snip the end off, so the water, once the water gets in a little bit, you can snip the end off, or you can just carefully. But with this cable, you have to make sure you don't get the water inside the plug. So using the same method, I will actually start with this end, so I'll leave the plug right at the end of the rod. This way I don't have to get it wet. So the same way, just attach it here, a bit of Kapton tape, make sure it's nice and tight. Back into the screwdriver. And again, firmly and nicely, make sure it doesn't have any gaps in it. Don't rush, just wind it onto the rod. Now I have a feeling this is going to be a really close call because I've still got a bit of a cable to go and I'm running out of the rod. That's alright. I hope it's going to fit. Almost. I'm sure there's a little bit of rod left and I can just, yeah, just a little tail left. And again, using high temperature Kapton tape, we will attach the end to the rod. Alright, now that it's done and wound onto the rod, I'm going to set my oven to 150 degrees Celsius and wait till it preheats. If you have a fan-forced oven, don't set it to 150, set it to maybe 120 degrees. So I will be right back when the oven is ready. Alright, so the oven has been preheated to 150 degrees Celsius. So let's open it up. Oh, hot, hot, hot. And hang the cable inside. Get a towel or something. So using the hooks that were made from the copper wires, I just simply attach it to the existing racks. Here we have it. And stick it back in. And now let's set the timer for 10 minutes. And wait. Alright, so 10 minutes has gone by It's time to take it out of the oven. Be very careful because they are hot. Grab it by the end. And we'll take it straight to the sink and pour cold water on it. Make sure you don't wet the plug. And don't burn yourself either. It is hot. Now pour the water until the cable is fully cooled down and the rod is cold as well. It takes maybe about 30 seconds to a minute. While the oven is still hot, I'm thinking of making some pizza. Why waste energy? Okay, so the cable has been cooled, the pizza is in the oven, and here we have it. Now I've dried it a bit with the paper towels, and it doesn't matter, there's still some water trapped inside, but that's not a problem. So let's undo one of the ends, the copper wire, and let's cut the Kapton tape. Don't cut the wire, be very careful when you're doing that. You want the wire intact. Alright, so here we have first part. Now we'll cut the second part. And just try to remove it. Jeez. That's some good tape. Usually Kapton tape doesn't stick well. There we go. And now we'll slide the cable off the rod. Now, do not yet stretch it out. If you stretch it out, chances are it'll stay like that. So leave it alone, maybe leave it to dry a bit. You don't have to if you don't want to. So we'll take the first one off. Let's take the second one off as well. Just slide it out. Try not stretching it just yet. There we have it. Alright, and as you can see, it's a lot better than winding on the pencil, but you can still tell that it's fragile, and you can tell that if you try stretching it, chances are it'll stay stretched. So the next step we're going to do is the secret that manufacturers don't want you to know. I don't know why. If you're doing it at home, obviously it's not going to harm them. Unless you're a manufacturer, then you might use that trick. So let's take the cable. And if you ever encountered with the old phones that have the coiled cable to the handset, that sometimes in the middle of the cable you see this odd loop that is not right. So that's the trick to it. So what you have to do is twist it around just like that to create that loop at the beginning. And once you have, keep winding. So we have to rewind the cable onto itself. So let me just go through a little bit. So the one that is in your right hand is supposed to go anti-clockwise, and the one in your left hand is going anti-clockwise. So you're turning them both at the same time, rewinding the cable from left to the right. And once you go through the whole cable, let me just finish it. So as you can see, that odd loop that sometimes you see in the phone's headset. So rewinding it all the way back. In the factories, I'm pretty sure they have machine do that sort of stuff. But again, we're not at the factory, we're making it at home. And now that the cable has been rewound, almost, and there we have it. Now you will notice that the wires that were on the outside are now kind of towards the inside. You can bend them outwards and yeah, but now the cable is done. And notice how springy it is. Let me put it on the table. So you stretch it out and it springs right back. It just wants to stay in this coiled position. You can even hear it snap to place. So that's the secret. Let's try doing it the same with this one. Again, grab the end, twist it out, and start recoiling it. Now, at the beginning, you might start doing it and it will look like a mess, but eventually it will recoil itself. And you can already see that this one is already trying to spring, but this one is stretching apart. So let's just do the whole thing. Now again, depending on the wire, make sure it's not too silicone and not too hard, because if the wire is too silicone, this is a bit of silicone, but it's still it's doing great. You can already see the difference. Look at that. Look at the wire that I've just still loose, like I'll leave it on the table. Look at the wire that I've rewound, how tight it is, and look at the wire that is still there. It's, yeah, it just look at it. It stays like that, but look at this. It springs right back. So we'll continue rewinding it. Smaller wires are easier. The grey wire is a bit hard and has a, yeah, very firm. Again, halfway through, and look at the difference. You can tell that the wire we just rewound is just snapping straight back, and this one is still staying loose. So let's do the whole wire to the end. You can let it dry out. As you see, my wires are still a bit wet. But again, make sure when you're putting it in the cold water, do not wet the plugs if you have plugs. If you're using just a normal wire like that, at the end, once it's out of the water, you can just take the snips and cut the ends off. Oh, that just shot across the room. So is this one. And to make sure there's no water, and there you have your wire. So let's just finish this one. There we have it. So yeah, look at that. How neat is that? You saw that wire before, now it just snaps right back. That's the secret of doing those wires. So, and yeah, look at that, look at that. Let me zoom in so you can see how good the quality of it is. Oh. Yeah, look at that. Snaps straight back in. So here it is. Thanks for watching this video on how to make coiled cables. I hope you enjoyed this project and it helped you with making your own coiled cable. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts on this project. See you next time. Bye. Welcome back to Max TV Original. Fuck. Lights went off.